Alexander. Perhaps the most startling thing about Alexander is how staggeringly ordinary he was. He was the one that got called in when things got weird, when nobody else understood what was going on. The police, the military, NASA, they all found themselves a little untethered by this new world where the totally unexpected happened. Alexander would be called in, and they expected some man of mystery in a duster coat and a fedora to walk through a door out of the fog, backlit and dramatic. And what they got was Alexander, who was just a guy. An extremely cheerful and enthusiastic guy, but just a guy. And somehow he was the one who was able to get a handle on a world gone sideways. For the past couple of years, inexplicable, miraculous things had been happening. Objects, people, animals, even monsters, to whatever extent that word had any meaning anymore, would just randomly appear unexpectedly. One moment, a quiet residential block of houses would just be existing as normal, or a farmer's field, or the perfume counter at a department store in a mall. The next it would be overrun by blue guinea pigs, or men in togas speaking classical Latin. Or once, a ton and a half of strawberry ice cream. Presumably, objects, people, animals, and monsters were disappearing from the everyday world as well, and appearing somewhere else, but it was hard to tell. Inevitably, these situations could be dealt with, but they were usually messy and they were almost always expensive to resolve. An issue would crop up, and after the fact it would be discovered that there had been a straightforward solution that nobody had understood at the time, but only in retrospect. A tribe of pre-Viking barbarians might appear in Times Square, for instance, scaring the absolute bejesus out of a couple hundred tourists who would scream in terror. This might lead the spear-carrying warriors to scream back furiously, which might set off another round of blind panic from the tourists, and the situation would devolve from there. The few actual New Yorkers who found themselves, almost certainly against their will, in Times Square would just roll their eyes, sneer, and continue on their way. Later on, authorities trying to clear up the literal and social mess left by the incident's aftermath might figure out that Olaf and his friends were actually fairly easygoing, but very sensitive to loud noises, and would panic at a group of tourists screaming at them. Something that would have been extremely useful to know at the time. And this is where Alexander came in. He was the living embodiment of the philosophy of making a weakness work for you. He'd never actually been formally diagnosed or anything, but you could probably describe Alexander as autistic. Not Rain Man autistic or anything. He was just constantly mystified by social cues and expectations. For as long as he could remember, he'd gotten confused or even suspicious reactions from other people when, trying his absolute level best to be situationally appropriate, he misunderstood social cues and reacted in ways that made a lot of his peers scowl and take a step backwards. This happened to Alexander on an almost daily basis, and over time he hadn't gotten any better at reading confusing situations, but he had gotten very good at pretending he knew what was going on and improvising reactions well enough to get through most social awkwardness. He could be half an hour into an important relationship discussion with his wife, for instance, when she would stop and sigh and say, "You have no idea what we're talking about, do you?" He would nod cheerfully, and after a moment she would get up and hug him. She was happy that he didn't have some secret hidden agenda, and he was happy that he wasn't in trouble. They would go to bed or out for ice cream, and the situation would have resolved itself. This was generally how Alexander saw the world. Give the world a chance to vent or give you clues, and eventually everything would work itself out. So when mysterious, frustrating, contextless things started happening all over the world, people like Alexander, who were really good at improvising in such situations, were called in to de-escalate them. Yesterday, a giant 7-ton water buffalo had suddenly appeared in downtown Flagstaff and started ramming cars. When Alexander had been brought in, he had been genuinely delighted to beat the monster water buffalo. It had snorted and tossed his head, but he just smiled and sat down on the pavement in front of it. After a few minutes, the water buffalo, who Alexander decided was named Walter, "You're a Walter buffalo," he told the giant beast, and smiled in a self-satisfied kind of way, kneeled down on all fours and stared cautiously back at him. "What's it like being a water buffalo?" Alexander had asked after a while. He hadn't got much of an answer. Just a snort that stirred up a puff of dust from the street, but this kicked off a chain of thought for Alexander. There's not actually much water here, is there? He'd eventually said to Walter, who responded with another snort. Hey, Alexander called over his shoulder to the SWAT team behind him. Would it be possible to get some water over here? You mean like a bottle of water or something? The SWAT captain asked. I was thinking more like, I don't know, a hose? I guess we could call a fire truck, she said. Cool. No sirens, though, please. Oh, will it panic him? The captain asked, pointing at Walter with her chin. Oh, it'll panic me. Oh, fair enough. Half an hour later, Walter was lying on his side, sighing with contentment under a mist of water, courtesy of a perplexed but happy crew of firefighters who took turns posing for selfies in front of the giant water buffalo. Today, the issue was another animal-related one. 3 very large, not Walter large, but large, hyenas had found their way onto a bus full of third graders on their way back from a field trip to the planetarium. So far, the only injury had been on the part of the bus driver, who had lost half a butt cheek to the female? It's really hard to tell with hyenas, and was now lying on his stomach on a gurney, giving his statement to the police. Alexander reported to the incident commander, who seemed a little annoyed to have one more expert to deal with. The behavioral zoologist they'd sent onto the bus half an hour ago had only made the growling hyenas growlier. Ugh, are you the DE? He asked Alexander. Does that mean de-escalator or something? Alexander asked him. Yes. Ugh, that always sounds like a dentist who lost a D, Alexander said. Yeah, that's me. The incident commander. Icy? Alexander wondered, and then got distracted for a second, thinking about things that were icy and how much he could go for a popsicle at the moment. Just stared at him briefly. What do you need from us? He asked, after a few seconds of awkward silence. Do you have a badge? Alexander asked him. I do. Can I see it? The young man asked. The IC took out his badge and showed it to Alexander, who said, That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Do you have to polish it? This conversation was quickly making a weird morning even weirder. About twice a year. Does this have anything to do with hyenas? Oh no, absolutely not. I've just never seen one of these up close before. You're very cool. Unexpectedly flattered in spite of himself, the IC slipped into a slightly less awkward pause. So, he said after a moment, other than seeing my badge, is there anything you need from us? I don't think so, Alexander said. I'll just go up on the bus and see what happens. This seemed like a spectacularly bad idea to the IC, but the brass had told him to give the strange guy whatever he needed, so he nodded and stepped aside, indicating the way to the school bus with an open palm. As Alexander walked through the door and up the stairs and onto the bus, he was hit by the fairly ripe odor of hyenas and hot children. The children seemed pretty calm, all things considered, and the hyenas had spaced themselves along the aisle, but they weren't doing much of anything. There wasn't much growling at the moment. They were just sitting up on their haunches, watching the children. Everything okay? Alexander asked the kids. About a third of the children had fallen asleep in the stuffy heat of the afternoon, but the rest seemed more or less okay. This is boring, one of the boys said. Can we go home? I don't know, Alexander said. I think it's up to them. He indicated the hyenas. Oh, they're okay, one of the girls said. They just won't get out of the way. She shoved one of the hyena's shoulders as she said this, but aside from a slightly dirty look, it didn't react to being manhandled. On the other hand, it didn't move either. This one ate my lunch, another small boy announced. Really? Alexander asked. Oh, it's okay, the boy said. My mom keeps making sandwiches with sunflower butter. I'm not even allergic. Really? Alexander asked again, genuinely interested. Yeah, but he liked it. The hyena didn't react to this revelation, so Alexander decided to take the kid's word for it. I've been singing to them, a girl with a very poofy ponytail said. Do they like that? Alexander asked. She shrugged. I'm not sure. Something about the idea of singing to a group of very large hyenas actually appealed to Alexander. Music hath charms and all that. Do you think they'd like me to sing to them? He asked the kids. Are you one of those old people who only know old people songs? One of the kids asked. Alexander thought about it for a couple of seconds. Yeah, pretty much, he said. The girl with the poofy ponytail rolled her eyes, but none of the kids seemed to have any better suggestions, so he decided to give it a try. I can hear it coming in the air tonight, he sang. Hold on. A couple of the children groaned audibly. Really? He heard one of them say. That one? Undeterred, Alexander continued. I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Hold on, hold on. He got through another verse or two before the hyenas started whining. I remember, don't worry, don't worry. At this point, the largest of the hyenas, presumably the butt-biter, gave up and leapt howling through one of the open windows and fled yelping into the distance, followed quickly by the other two. Alexander and the children watched them disappear into the distance. Well, that was just mean, he said. I don't know about you, but I don't think I have any actual problems in my life, but I've been feeling a little sorry for myself lately. And to be honest, for me, the cure to self-pity is rhubarb. Oh, I know. Rhubarb? Really? Yeah. Let's check it out. Here. We'll start with some botanical gin, a couple of ounces of Hendrick's Oasium, and put that over some ice. Yep, that's the good stuff. And let's go with, there we go, 1 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. Add a little bit of brightness, a little acidity, and of course to drive off some scurvy. You know, that's actually really good. All right, and 3/4 of an ounce of homemade rhubarb syrup. I'll put the recipe down in the comments. And glug, glug, glug. Okay, the last ingredient is tricky. We're going to put some rose water in there. Now, rose water, when it works, is just brilliant. But 1 drop too little, and you can't taste it at all. 1 drop too many, and it tastes like grandmother's soap, frankly. So that's 5 drops of rose water. So you seal that and shake, 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 and put a little bit of ice into a small Collins glass. Collins glass, what am I thinking? A rocks glass. And we're going to, oh, wait a second, why'd you put that away? Yeah, we're going to strain our drink over some fresh ice. And look at that. It's princess pink, and it's perfect, and it's floral, and it's sweet, and it's sour. And yes, you could be in a bad mood after drinking this cocktail, but you'd have to make an effort at it.